The sled had come down hard on the eastern face of Thresh Ridge, and by the time I reached the wreckage, the storm had already started burying it. I almost walked past her. She was small enough that the snow had folded over her like a blanket, and the gray of her skin matched the gray of the ice, so well that my lamp passed over her twice before I caught the amber gleam of her eyes blinking. But me, Arathi. I knew the species. Traders came through the valley relay twice a year, but I had never seen one this young or this alone. No adults in the wreck. No bodies, either. Whatever had happened to the courier crew had happened somewhere else, and this child had ridden the sled down by herself in a full whiteout on a glacier shelf at 40 below. I carried her inside. She did not make a sound the entire walk back to the station. Just watched me with those amber eyes, both hands gripped into my jacket, translucent ears folded flat against her skull, the way a frightened animal folds its ears. I got the outer door sealed, got her wrapped in the thermal blanket from the emergency locker, got the heater running on its last reliable fuel cell. She was thin, starving, the Arathi run lean, but thin in the way that means a long time between meals. I heated a ration of broth, and she drank it without being asked, which told me she was smart or desperate or both. Was checking the sled wreckage on the monitor when I saw the tracks, large, splayed, deep, even in packed snow. The keth leaves a print you do not mistake for anything else. Four-lobed, the rear claw dragging slightly, the stride of something that weighs twice what I do, and moves faster in deep snow than I can move on flat ground. The tracks came from the eastern tree line, followed the sled's descent path exactly, and stopped 10 meters from my outer door. It had not come for the wreck. It had come for her. I sat with that for a moment. The keth are territorial predators and largely leave the station alone. I had been at Thresh for 3 winters without a serious incident, but they track by scent, and they do not abandon a trail once they have committed to it. Whatever had spooked the sled courier, wherever the crew had gone, this animal had been following Vesey since before the crash. It knew she was inside. I checked the door seals. I checked the ventilation covers. I moved the 2 signal flares to the shelf, by the inner door where I could reach them in the dark. Then I sat down across from the child and told her, as plainly as I could in the trade tongue, what was outside and what I intended to do about it. She listened. When I finished, she asked one question: why? I told her I did not have a complicated answer for that. First night the keth tested the outer door. Not a charge, just pressure, a slow-leaning weight that made the frame creak. I sat in the chair facing the door and did not move. Vesey slept in the bunk behind me with her ears folded down. The pressure held for perhaps an hour, then released. I heard the heavy crunch of it moving around the station's perimeter. Then silence. The second day it found the ventilation shaft cover on the north face. I went out in full cold gear and wired a secondary brace across it from the outside. When I came back and my left hand had gone stiff inside the glove. Not frostbite yet, but close. I ran warm water over it for 20 minutes, while Vesey watched me from the corner of the room with an expression I could not read. She did not touch the injury. She did not speak. But she poured the water for me, refilling the basin twice without being asked, and that was enough. The third night, the keth hit the ice wall on the eastern side hard enough to crack the outer insulation panel. Heard it from inside, a sound like a rifle shot, and I was at the inner door before the echo died. It did not breach, it tested. It was patient in the way that large predators are patient, working the problem from every angle, looking for the place where the human's attention slipped. My attention did not slip. On the 4th morning, the fuel cell on the heater read 8%, and I was running the calculations on what that meant for the night ahead when the outer vestibule door gave way, not the inner door. The vestibule, the small airlock buffer between outside and inside. The keth had found hinge gap on the outer frame and worked it through the night while I was rationing heat, and now it was in the space between the 2 doors, and the inner door was the only thing between it and the child behind me. I stood up. I want to be honest about what I was in that moment. 53 years old. One hand not fully working. A signal flare in my right fist and a station mount wrench in my left. The keth on the other side of that door weighed, at a conservative estimate, 300 kilograms. And in the time it would take me to trigger the flare, it could cover the distance between us twice over. I was not the strongest thing on that ridge. I stood in front of the inner door, and I did not move. I do not know how long it was. The Keth breathed against the door. I could hear it, slow and heavy, and I breathed back, and neither of us moved, and then something shifted. Not dramatically. It did not snarl or charge or back away with any ceremony. It simply stopped pushing. The weight against the door eased. The heavy crunch of its footsteps moved across the vestibule, paused, and then went back the way it came. By mid-morning, the tracks on the monitor led east toward the tree line and did not come back. The relay courier found us 2 days later. Vessie's people came for her inside the week. A quiet delegation, no fleet, no ceremony, just 3 adults in a ground transport. And a lot of careful looking at the cracked vestibule door and the wired ventilation shaft, and my hand, which had finally gone properly frostbitten by then, and needed 2 months of treatment to come right. One of them asked me what I had used to drive the Keth off. I showed them the flare and the wrench. They were quiet for a while after that. Vessie left without much fuss. She was Arathi. They do not perform emotion the way humans do. And I had learned not to read absence of display as absence of feeling. At the outer door, she stopped and looked back at me for a moment with those amber eyes, and then she touched 2 fingers to the door frame. A gesture I did not know the meaning of then. I looked it up later. In Arathi, it means, I mark this place as one where I was kept. That is all. That is the whole of it. I stayed in front of a door because there was a child on the other side of it, and the thing outside did not have a category for something that would not move. That was the only advantage I had, and it was enough. It has always been enough.